Joe Biden made a quick trip to Florida today, his first time in the Sunshine State for nearly a year. Well, it turns out his 2020 basement strategy has him looking a little vulnerable and at times even a tad confused.
Harris-Biden administration is going to relaunch that effort.
When we hit the recession, the President Obama, and it frightens people when I talk about the testing area. They're really shooting live ammo and things, and yeah.
Meanwhile, Trump is signing historic peace accords, getting 2 Nobel Prize nominations, and crisscrossing the country. Now, over the past 36 hours, the president was in Nevada for a rally, California to deal with the wildfires, Arizona for a Hispanic event, then back to Washington to sign the Ingraham Accords. And after all that, he then headed to Pennsylvania for a town hall tonight, which will have, as I said, first reaction later in the hour. Trump is truly the Energizer Bunny of politics. Keeps going and going. Now, for Biden, though, a big day is, casting a primary vote just a few minutes' drive from his home.
And what about early voting? You guys voted early today?
Because I'm going to be in, where am I tomorrow? I'm traveling tomorrow.
Since Biden himself can't tell us, it's important that we examine the twin forces behind the Biden candidacy, the billionaires and the Bolsheviks, and explain what each faction wants. Now, when Michael Bloomberg announced that he was giving the Biden campaign $100 million to spend in Florida, it became obvious that the billionaire class is getting a little nervous. Suddenly, the goal of getting back to normal in our relationship with China, which is what they want, it doesn't seem such a sure bet after all. Now, Bloomberg hates the Trump tariffs because they make it harder to do big deals in China and to offshore more U.S. jobs, both of which he ends up favoring. Now, of course, he's just one of at least 132 prominent billionaires who are supporting Biden. First, there's Bill Gates, who seems to be rooting for a Biden win in November as well. After all, he and Biden both share the same agenda. They both agree on appeasing China, a national mask mandate, and no return to normalcy without a vaccine.
For the world at large, normalcy only returns when we've largely vaccinated the entire global population.
I love how he does this with his hands. Well, then there's Tom Steyer, of course, who is a rabid promoter of the Green New Deal, which we already know will cost trillions and kill the oil and gas industry. Oh, and there's also Laurene Powell Jobs, the wife of the late Apple founder, whose magazine, The Atlantic, just published that bogus smear claiming Trump belittled our war dead. False. Well, they all have one thing in common. They absolutely despise President Trump's America First agenda. The billionaire crowd prefers an America where there's always a glut of labor. Now, what does that mean? It means there's no pressure on companies to raise wages. Trump prefers a tight labor market that puts upward pressure on wages, meaning bringing them up. That's good for the average working person. Besides, the billionaires don't need a functioning government. They certainly don't have to worry much about law and order. They have security guards and big walls and helicopters and planes if they want to escape, but not the average person. Now check out this headline. Pennsylvania's blue-collar voters see danger and back Trump. Now these same workers, they know the truth. Trump's economic nationalism works. And these same workers know the truth that Trump's economic nationalism is nothing that Biden would ever agree to. In fact, he works against it. Now, check out this headline. Median household income increased 6.8% to $68,700, the highest on record. Now, the nation's poverty rate fell by 1.3 percentage points to 10.5%. Of course, this was in 2019, and that was down from 11.8% in 2018. This marked the lowest rate since estimates were first published in 1959, and it was the 5th consecutive decline. Now, this was real money in Americans' pockets, all before the pandemic. And if Biden wins, there's going to be no repeating the 2019 fantastic numbers because we'll be in lockdown, as I said last night, with massive job losses and stagnating wages. Oh, we're going to be hit with a $4 trillion tax increase as well. Now, the only thing that will trickle down from all of this is poverty, government dependence. Now, the other force supporting Biden are the modern-day Bolsheviks, the AOC +3 types, plus Antifa, as far as the eye can see. They believe that America is an awful, rotten, racist country, and they plan to punish anyone who gets in the way of their cultural revolution. AOC's tweet yesterday is characteristic of how she feels about us. The fact of the matter is the United States is engaged in a program of mass human rights violations targeting immigrants. This includes a mass child separation, systemic sexual assault, police in detention, people in detention, kangaroo court procedures, and more. Our country must atone for it all. Of course, she's talking about illegal immigrants, not legal immigrants. Now, the radical fringe, they are going to let billionaires run economic policy as long as they can run everything else. So AOC's fine as long as she can do climate policy, have a say in the courts, the DOJ. That's because they'll use every tool in the government's power to harass Americans who defy the socialist edicts. It's going to be a long, dark period of recriminations and retribution. And don't think for a second that Biden or Kamala Harris or anyone else will even try to slam the brakes on as we speed towards socialism.
This is our time to make sure we get rid of Trump and we elect someone who's going to be responsive to the policy positions we are advocating for.
Joe Biden has put probably the boldest plan I've ever seen in my lifetime to be by 2035 carbon neutral.
What came out of those task forces were pretty strong progressive programs. Joe Biden is prepared to do that.
Now, Biden is being propped up by the energy of the left that loathes America more than it really likes him, along with the money of some of the richest men and women on the planet. But neither the billionaires nor the Bolsheviks have much interest in building a strong middle class. The billionaires don't like workers who can think for themselves, and the Bolsheviks, they don't like the masses to be independent of government control. They've formed kind of an unholy alliance to turn the whole country into a giant version of Baltimore, with a tiny number of rich people and a lot of poor people. But the middle class, guess what? It still gets to vote. And if we want to preserve our way of life, if we want to keep the good jobs that have been created in recent years and the freedoms that Americans have enjoyed for centuries, we'll reject Biden, the billionaires, and the neo-Bolsheviks. And that's the angle.